In this lesson, we will discuss what is PHP namespace and why use it. In the simplest sense, a PHP namespace is simply a label which serves as a prefix to the class name. Traditionally in PHP, all class names, functions, constants, and variables were represented in what is called the global namespace. In other words, originally in PHP, there was only one allocation for classes, constants, functions, and variables. As of PHP 5.3, the concept of a namespace was introduced. In order to make the namespace facility more useful, it can be multi-part. If you have a multi-part namespace, the backslash is used as a separator. As an example of a namespace, we will look at Zen Framework 2. In this example, the abstract adapter class is located in the namespace Zen authentication adapter DB table. You'll notice that the backslash is used as a separator. There is no notion of inheritance within namespaces. Although these three classes are all within the DB table namespace, there's nothing specific that they inherit from DB table, adapter, authentication, or Zend. Zend authentication adapter DB table simply serves as a prefix for the class abstract adapter. Looking now at the actual source code under GitHub, the Zen Framework ZF2 project, you can see that the namespace follows the directory structure. This is oftentimes the case and is highly recommended, especially to facilitate a concept known as autoloading. If you look into the source code, you'll notice that the first thing that needs to be done is to indicate the namespace, in this case, Zend Authentication Adapter DB table. The class name is usually the same as the file name. Thus, the full name for the class would actually be Zend Authentication Adapter DB table Abstract Adapter. You'll also notice the keyword use. The keyword use allows us to reference namespaces which are outside of the current namespace, which in this case is Zend Authentication Adapter DB table. Thus, if we want to represent Zend Authentication result, we would use a use statement. We could also use as to represent the class as an alias. You'll also notice that you can simply use classes out of the PHP standard library or out of the PHP tree. And you'll also notice we can use classes that are completely outside of the tree, in this case, ZendDB SQL. The next question is why use PHP namespaces? The simple answer is that if we are using multiple open source libraries, it's very possible that you could accidentally duplicate the class name. It also facilitates a concept called autoloading, especially if you've configured your namespace to match your directory structure. Let's take a look at a simple example. Under the folder installation, we have a folder X and a folder Y. Each folder contains the same file, test.php, with minor differences. The X folder represents namespace X and the class test. The Y folder represents the namespace Y and the class test. You'll notice there are duplicate class names and duplicate method names as well. So if we look at a code example, namespace _test.php, which uses both classes, you'll notice that the namespace serves as a prefix to the class name. So in this example, we are using the same class name test 2 times, but under different namespaces. So as you can see, the class test under X and the class test under Y are viewed by PHP as separate classes. To further illustrate the usefulness of namespaces, we can develop a simple autoload function. In this example, we're taking advantage of a magic function called double_autoload. This is built into the PHP language and accepts a class name as an argument. The beauty of this arrangement is that the class name also includes the namespace. So as you can see on line 5, all we need to do is to replace the backslash with the appropriate directory separator. We then add a .php at the end, check to see if the file exists. We then do an include for this file. In this particular example, you'll notice we also throw an exception if we're unable to locate the file that needs to be autoloaded. So starting at line 11 and on down, we no longer need to specify include or require in any other part of the code that we're using. On line 12 and 13, the autoloading function will be invoked, and the class test under X will be located, as well as the class test under Y. Running this example, you can see we have exactly the same output as previously.